background comments from me, and I'm going to sort of tell you the story of how I got into my role. And I think the story of what Pfizer's been doing and supply chain security is probably a story that many other companies are engaged in. So I got into my role in Pfizer when the company was really looking at our manufacturing strategy. So as a company, our pipeline was challenged. We were moving into trying to compete in the generic space. We're moving into emerging markets. Our business model as a corporation was changing pretty significantly. And what that drove is a number of changes in our manufacturing strategies. And so we started to do a lot more outsourcing of contract manufacturing. We started to outsource some of our API production. And we started to procure materials from around the world. And the corporation was a little bit concerned with the added risk of our new business model and manufacturing strategies. So I was tasked with, on an enterprise level for Pfizer, to develop what we call the supply chain security strategy. How do we mitigate these risks associated with changes in our manufacturing strategies? That's I think, a common challenge that many large pharmaceutical companies have, and is one of the reasons I got into my current role as leader of supply chain security for Pfizer. I'm one of the lucky ones in that my day job parallels very closely with the role in Rx-360, because I think Rx-360 really is, an organization that is mobilized around our changing business models, manufacturing strategies, and mitigating risk in the supply chain. So let me find the clicker here. So I'm privileged to be part of the organization. Rx-360 is very, very important to how we accomplish at Pfizer our role, because there's only so much an individual company can do. And organizations like Rx-360 allow us to collaborate across the supply chain with other companies, with regulators, etc., because we can't do this alone. And I think that's really going to be the message of today. So, I'm going to give you sort of an introduction into Rx-360, and then I think the other presentations throughout the day are going to fit in quite nicely. And it really is all about collaboration. So, I'm going to go through a few slides, coming back to Guy's opening comments. What are we really here for, and what is the problem that we're trying to address? I'll do an introduction to Rx-360 and cover the three key work streams within Rx-360, our auditing programs, supply chain security programs, and our information sharing and intelligence capability. So, take a look at the slide and read the numbers up here. So this is one headline from the Wall Street Journal. It's a bit dated, back to May. One seizure in one country. That one seizure represented potentially half of the entire market needs for malaria in Angola. Do you think that's the only thing that got caught in Angola? Probably not. That's one seizure, just to give you the scale of the counterfeiting problem that we have around the world. And the implications to patient safety is staggering. Research that I have seen in a lot of less regulated markets show a very, very high percentage of counterfeit, substandard, falsified medicines. And it's killing hundreds of thousands of people. That's really what we're here for. And that's just unacceptable. I mean, we're in an industry where we are here to serve patients, and criminals are actually attacking our business and attacking our patients. And I don't think any company, any regulator, and certainly Rx-360, that's just unacceptable. And that's what we're here to do. So unfortunately, that headline from the Wall Street Journal is not the only headline. Right? So we see these all the time. Concert in Panama kills 21. The adulterated heparin incident. Melamine substitution in pet food. Melamine substitution in infant formula, et cetera, et cetera. Some statistics, real quick. So the Pharmaceutical Security Institute is an organization of the global security folks within some of the large manufacturing companies. These are typically ex-law enforcement folks, and every year they issue a report on the trends in pharmaceutical crime. And so what I've done here is broken down some of the statistics in the 2012 report. And this is only a subset of what's really happening out there. This is probably 35 companies' data, and it's probably a subset of those 35 companies. Over 2,000 isolated incidents reported, 529 medicines involved, 48% increase in life-saving injectable medicines, 123 countries involved, $321 million in product implicated. Incidents in China and India up 81%, representing 31% of the numbers of the entire 2,000. This number really bothers me. 483 of the incidents, approximately 25%, in the legitimate supply chain. Right? So we're not talking about just the internet or the black market. We're talking about the supply chain that you and I rely on to get our medicines, legitimate pharmacies. That's a scary number. And that represents a 13% increase. So that's why we're here today. From those statistics, in those slides, you'll see examples of breaches in the supply chain at raw materials, excipients, APIs, finished dosage form, distribution. Those crimes are occurring throughout the supply chain. So as an industry, we can't just look at a piece of it. We need to look at the entire supply chain. And I think as an industry, we're aligned with that vision of how we attack this issue. So, nice picture of our host. But the important thing is the mission statement for Rx-360. And the first three words there are protect patient safety. That's really what the organization is about. And it's protecting patient safety through collaboration. And I know that everyone who's part of Rx-360 is proud to be part of Rx-360. And again, Dee, thanks for hosting us here in Lisbon. So, how do we do this? What's our strategy? And this was developed by some of the leaders that you'll hear from today back in 2009 when Rx-360 launched. Developing best practices and sharing. Bringing industry experts together, responding to critical issues or events that occur. Act as a clearinghouse for information. Collectively, we see a lot of events happening, and we're aware of a lot of information. And if we put that collective power together and share amongst each other as an industry, pretty effective. Sharing individual audits and conducting joint audits. So go back to 2009. I mean, look at the melamine situations, look at the heparin, the intentional adulteration of materials. As an industry, we were scratching our heads figuring out, how are we going to do this? If we're expected to be able to control the supply chain all the way to N-2, N-3, at processing plants in China. How can we do this as an individual company? Well, we can't. We need to collaborate. We need to find a way to work together to do audits to increase our transparency of the supply chain. And I think industry's doing that. I think you're starting to see regulators do that more and more. The world's too big. It's too complex. The supply chains are too deep. And we need to work together to do that. And that's really what that bullet's about. And then technology. You know, how do we leverage our science and technology to detect issues that are happening in the supply chain? All right, a little bit about the organization. So, as Guy mentioned in his opening comments, we really want to be a broad, inclusive organization. That's the way that we win. We aspire to be a global organization. We are a global organization. We're stronger in the US and Europe. We're trying to grow in Asia. We need to be a global organization to affect the global supply chain. And we're getting there. But we're 4 years into this. This is not just a large company initiative. We need everybody in the supply chain engaged. So no matter where you are in the supply chain or how big you are, we want you to be part of Rx-360. Suppliers and manufacturers, very unique organization. You don't see organizations that put different stakeholders in the supply chain together too often. And we think that's the way to do it. Branded and generic. We have a goal to really increase the number of generic participants in Rx-360. We're not where we want to be right now. But when you look at the statistics of the number of medicines that generic companies provide globally, it's a large percentage. That's where we need to be there. And regulatory agencies. I thank all the regulatory agencies that are represented here today. We have to partner in this. And we want you to be part of the consortium as observers. All right, operating model. We are a nonprofit organization, volunteer-based. This is a little bit of a unique organization in that we are companies, not individuals. And we're also very, very cognizant of some of the antitrust issues that come along with putting together different people in the supply chain, mainly manufacturers and suppliers. So our operating model is designed to address that. Here's the members. We continue to grow every year. And you can look at the associations. I think when I look at the slide, I'm really proud of the associations that have joined as observers, because it really is about collaborating between organizations. And we open up Rx-360 to all associations to see what we're doing. And we're very sensitive to overlapping initiatives. As an industry, we do not have enough resource to copy what each other does. And we've got to find areas of specialty where we can focus, and we need to allow each other to sort of operate in that space instead of diluting our resources across different organizations, and that's what that's about. All right, so what are the big, we do more than this, but this is really the three big focus areas for Rx-360. And I've alluded to some of this. It's intelligence and sharing information externally. Big part of the game. Supply chain security, developing solutions to supply chain security threats, and developing preventative measures, right? I mean, we cannot be in a reactive mode as an industry. We need to figure out what are the weaknesses in the supply chain and develop tools to mitigate those risks. And that's what we're about. We don't do presentations and sessions just to get our name out there. We're delivering tools to industry, and we're doing it quickly through the supply chain security program. And I've mentioned the auditing programs. I mean, at the end of the day, what this is going to do, if we can collaborate effectively in audits, It's going to allow us to have better transparency and better reach in our supply chains. That's what it's really about. So a few things on the audit programs. We have two basic models that we're currently working with. One is joint audits, where 5 companies get together, they use the same supplier, and instead of having 5 different audits, which is a drain on the manufacturer's resource, and it's a huge drain on the suppliers, and they see the same auditors come in, the same issues, and it's a redundant process. It doesn't add a lot of value. Why can't we do this together? And the 5 companies do one audit, and that's what we call our joint audit program. Audit sharing is a program where if Abbott does an audit, they make that audit available to the consortium for information. So those are really the two audit programs. So we're on a journey. The first couple of years in developing our audit programs were really spent around developing the core of the program. The criteria, the standards, the criteria for qualifying auditors. We wanted to make sure that standards and quality of the audit came first, and then we'll worry about the execution of the program. But what is not negotiable is the quality of the audits that are done. So that's year 1 and 2. Year 3 and 4, we're trying to grow the program right now. We're really trying to expand. I mean, for us to be successful in our vision of increased supply chain transparency and unburdening companies and suppliers, we need to kick it up, and we need a fairly high volume to impact that. And that's what we're doing right now. We're working on how can we increase the uptake of the programs in the industry. So just some quick numbers from 2013. I mean, we're getting there, and we're having an impact already. We want to be at a different place, but in 2013, we had 25 joint audits conducted with 97 sponsors. And if you look at it in terms of the impact of that, in terms of audits saved on both sides, that equates to 72 audits. We've had over 60 audits licensed. So this means we put an audit report in the database and somebody purchased it. So they're not conducting an audit. So we're having an impact. We want those numbers to have zeros behind them, and we'll get there. But you can see the impact of this, the possibilities that exist. And we need everyone's help in the room here to make this happen. So we're doing a lot of work on, we're discovering a lot of things and learning a lot of things as we grow these programs. And so we've got a number of initiatives that are looking to, that are really targeted at driving growth of the programs. Are we targeting the right areas? The last piece there is GDPs. GDPs, we feel, is a big unmet need in the industry. So why don't we try to fill that unmet need as an example? And there's many other unmet needs. So we're really looking at how we can accelerate our programs, how we can modify our models to drive volume. Okay, let me jump into the next work stream, supply chain security. So the supply chain security work. So first of all, scope. Counterfeiting, theft, economically adulterated product, fraud, product diversion. This is all the headlines that we started the conversation with. This is the crime against our industry and our patients. And we're looking at developing processes to prevent, detect, and respond. Not just respond, it's more important to prevent, but the reality is that we can't prevent everything, so we need to be able to effectively detect and respond. But it's a holistic approach. And it's end-to-end. As an industry, that's how we need to attack this. I think it's pretty self-evident why, and that's what we're doing in Rx-360. Here's some of the work that's already been done. This program in Rx-360 started a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. And in 2 years, we've already issued, what do we got there, 10, 11 white papers. Industry's best thought leaders on these particular issues got together through Rx-360, shared best practices and their thinking on how to attack some of these issues. And we've issued white papers on this. I don't know of any other organization that can say that they've issued 10 technical documents in a year and a half or 10 publications. And in addition to the white papers, every one of these, or most of these, we've done free webinars. So this information, again, coming back to our model, which is we are here to improve patient safety, integrity of the supply chain, and the product of what we do is free and available to anybody. This is progress. So look at some of the work. The first one up there is a white paper that 3 years ago I don't think we would have been talking about. What does a holistic supply chain security program look like at a pharmaceutical company? What's that vision? What can we do for illegal diversion? What's the issue? How does it happen? And what can we do as an industry to attack that issue? Really interesting stuff. Okay? So now I'm going to jump to the last topic, which is information sharing. And I would ask everyone in the room, take a little bit of time, jump on the Rx-360 website, and if you spend a couple of hours on that website, you will become very well educated in supply chain security. There's tools, there's information about threats. Spend a couple hours. See what we've got there. Do it for your patients. Do it for your company. On that website, you have all of our intelligence from around the world around threats. These come out as flash reports, alerts that we've become aware of an issue in a particular market. We want you to be aware of that. On the website is also all the white papers that I just mentioned. Click on them, open them, use them, steal the information. Take it and implement it at your company, if it's applicable. On the website is evolving legislation and regulations. Another service we do for industry is we have a group of people that will pull together a summary of what's happening with GDPs in Europe, or what's happening with FDASIA in the US, and try to help educate industry, and in a lot of cases, break down very complex legislation into simple, understandable takeaways for industry. And it's a service to industry that we do for free, because we think it's important to educate and make industry aware. Incredible resource. Use it. And this is an example of some of the recent legislation that we've done summaries on and evaluations. Okay? So, to sort of summarize some of the progress that we've made in 4 short years. Information Pack website. We've issued over 330 flash reports. I was mentioning at our board meeting yesterday, I was doing a presentation to, I think it's Shanghai University in China, and they did a forum on supply chain security, and the regulators that were in the room, all of them were aware of Rx-360, and all of them were aware of the information that Rx-360 pushes out, and all of them were very, very appreciative of that work that we're doing. And that was the one thing that sort of came up right off the bat. The number 2 FDA person in China mentioned that. It was like, oh, thank you very much. We think it's important also. Over 100 summaries of legislation 18 alerts issued of immediate high-risk issues. Mentioned the white papers, and we're well over 100 audits now, which again, if you multiply that times the number of joint manufacturers and suppliers, it's pretty impactful. And something we're real proud of is the last bullet point there. We mobilized, and this is an example of mobilizing around issues. With the tsunami in Japan, we were able to get thought leaders from a number of large companies, experts in radiation, to take a look at that issue and help apply science to what was happening and make good decisions for industry, or make good recommendations on what companies can do or how they can assess threats. And we're prepared to do that if another big issue occurs like that. So, in summary, I think I can speak for the consortium and all the people in the consortium. We believe, and we are, a champion for patient safety, and we're going to continue to be that. We believe that we've got a unique model for collaborating as an industry, and we're going to continue to do that. We've developed strong intelligence and communication network. We think it's important going forward. Supply chain transparency. We want to continue to be a thought leader. If you need help in the supply chain, we've got the people that have really good understanding of the risks and solutions in the supply chain. Come and talk to us. We'll help you. We mobilized around global threats. We're establishing best practices. We are sought out for advice. And we're attacking threats to our industry and patients, and we're proud of it. I don't even need to go here, but this is really what it's about, right? I mean, it's a privilege to be in this industry. I've spent my entire career manufacturing medicines and helping people live healthier lives. And that's really what it's about. And it comes with a responsibility. And our responsibility is to make those medicines available and take out criminals who are trying to impact our business and our patients. And those are my comments. I don't know if we have time for question and answer, and I'm going to ask the board members that are in the room to help me answer questions. But so anything that's on your mind, let's have a dialogue. Gerald.
Brian, that was great. Thank you very much for that presentation. You mentioned the reach of Rx-360 outside the US and Europe. Could you say something about the progress you're making to achieve that?
Yeah, so actually November 20th and 21st we are kicking off an Asia work group. And next month we have a meeting in Shanghai, and we've got, I think, approximately 30 participants that are signed up, locally based folks from our companies. And we're going to be kicking that off in the next month, developing a charter and really figuring out where we need to go with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the very convincing presentation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. My question is
about joint audits. Are you planning and preparing that kind of activity? I understand the process.
Your question is, how do we coordinate that? Or?
Are you planning? It means how you make a plan, how you choose your targets, where you want to audit, and how you organize the team. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So right now the process is somewhat of a pull process from industry. So represented in the room is Mary Devlin Capizzi and Lee Nagao from DVR. They are our legal team in Washington, D.C., and have done a great job putting on this symposium. But they also are the engine behind our audit program. So a lot of the coordination is done through DVR. It's a bit of a pull process, so we're not able to really put together an audit plan and say, here's what we're going to do. What we need to do, and the difficulty of the audit scheme is We need to find companies that are interested. We need to put those companies together. And we need to get agreement from all the people to conduct the audit, which, as you can imagine, is a bit of a task, right? And that's probably our biggest hurdle, is getting, it may be strong to say this, getting us all to cooperate together. So we're not able to put together and plan a proactive schedule. It's sort of how we can put the pieces together to get something that works for everyone. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment from the consortium on that. Okay, thanks for the question.
Brian,
Yeah.
I think Gerald's question, we could develop it a little bit further. I mean, there's,
Please.
I think there's, different regions work differently. I think Asia, industry kind of waits for regulators to give signals that this is the right thing to do. And I think that, that group around Asia Pacific that brings the US and Japan, China, you've been at those meetings and
U.S. Department of Commerce meetings with China?
yeah, there are those, but there would be others also where you had all the regulators there and they were keen to hear what we could bring forward as knowledge on
You want me to?
yeah.
Well, yeah, so in addition to that, I mean, there's a lot of, one-off initiatives. So we're doing some work with the U.S. Department of Commerce, who has a joint task force with China on trade. And they're spending time working on supply chain security. And so that's something that we're engaged in as a consortium. APEC. APEC is leading an initiative on supply chain security. Rx-360 is on the oversight committee, as well as represented on a number of the different work streams, really targeted at sort of global harmonization. And it is global, it's a global initiative. Those are some examples of other things that we're doing to sort of get our foot in the door, if that's what you were thinking about. And there's probably more that I... Questions, comments? Reactions? Is it working? Do you think it's the right way to go?
At some point you mentioned tools, that you were providing the industry some
Yeah.
tools. Can you be more specific of are those best practices or just workflows, or from a technical background I would like to learn more about the approaches.
It's all of the above, right? So the tools, I use tools generically, right? So a lot of our information networks, our web, our flash reports, those are all tools around getting information out. The white papers are very, very specific tools on how to mitigate risks in the supply chain. Our audit program, our standards, some of the guides that we have, inspection guides, those are tools in the auditing space. So everything that we do is a tool to some extent.
But Rx-360 also develops analytical methods and offers them to everybody. And we especially develop tools that are more accurate or more useful to identify falsification. And we do those when you start having gangster-type opportunities. And I forget, what was this? At some point there was a crisis a few years back. The car industry stopped doing whatever they do because they weren't selling cars. And there was some solvent that was no longer produced. Acetonitrile. And then, so obviously that was a great opportunity to start falsifying acetonitrile. And possibly whatever analytical methods for identification that were available there could have been fooled. So Rx-360 does technology also in terms of actual analytical methods, and you can go to the website and you have them.
All right, so if you are not an Rx-360 member, become one. We'd like to have you on board. And we need you on board, actually. Any other questions, comments? All right, very good. Oh, one more.
I'm just wondering, is there a collaboration with other industries that also have this kind of challenge? Maybe consumer electronics industry, but also open to counterfeiting and supplying the market with unsatisfactory goods?
Yeah, actually, we, probably not to the extent that we should, to be honest with you, but we can learn a lot from a lot of other industries, and I think we do. We have occasionally had, so we've done some work with the food industry, and we've had the food industry come in and talk about some of their models. I think when we set up our auditing program, we looked at food, automotive, and I think even clothing. So we have looked at different models. I think we can do a lot more. When you look at some of the tools in, say, for example, the counterfeiting space, looking at the financial, business, they've figured out ways to do that. I think we can do more, but we try to keep an eye on what other industries are doing. It's a good point, though. Okay? All right, so you're number 7.